The sound of the slap cut through Constellation like a knife through silk. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was sharp, wet, and sickening. The kind of sound that makes your stomach drop before your brain catches up. Every fork froze halfway to a mouth. The string quartet in the corner stuttered into silence, the cellist's bow scraping awkwardly across the strings. A waiter near the kitchen doors dropped his tray of champagne flutes. The crystal shattered on the marble floor, the sound echoing like a gunshot in the sudden vacuum of silence. 80 people. 80 of the wealthiest, most powerful people in New York City, tech billionaires, hedge fund managers, politicians who smiled for cameras and made backroom deals, fashion designers whose single garments cost more than a car. They all stopped. They all stared. At table 7, the VIP corner booth. The table with the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan like a kingdom of diamonds and glass. The table that required a 6-month waiting list or a net worth that didn't bother with waiting. And standing at that table, her head turned to the side from the force of the blow, was Maya Reyes, 28 years old, 5'6", dark hair pulled into a tight professional bun, wearing the standard Constellation uniform, black slacks, white button-down shirt, a burgundy vest embroidered with the restaurant's gold Constellation logo, and a name tag that said Maya R. Sommelier. Her left cheek was already blooming red. A perfect handprint, 5 fingers, a palm, the mark of violence delivered with the full force of entitled rage. But Maya didn't cry. She didn't flinch. She didn't run. She just stood there, perfectly still, her hand still holding the bottle of Chateau d'Yquem, 1947, one of the rarest dessert wines in the world. Worth $12,000. She'd been pouring it when it happened. One drop. A single perfect drop of golden wine had leapt from the bottle's lip and landed on the pristine white leather of Victoria Ashford Kane's custom Hermes clutch. $45,000. Custom made. One of 3 in the world. And Victoria Ashford Kane, fiancée to tech billionaire David Kane, heiress to the Ashford pharmaceutical dynasty, had just slapped a sommelier in front of the entire New York elite. The silence stretched, thick, suffocating. Everyone was waiting for the sommelier to burst into tears, waiting for her to be dragged out by security, waiting for the manager to grovel and beg forgiveness from the woman who could destroy the restaurant with a single phone call. Victoria was breathing hard, her chest rising and falling beneath her Valentino gown. $12,000, red silk, cut low enough to show off the $30 million diamond engagement ring on her left hand. The ring that had been on the cover of Vogue 3 months ago. The ring that Forbes had called the most expensive engagement ring in American history. She smiled, a small, cruel Victoria smile. She'd asserted her dominance. The world was back in its proper order. The help had been put in their place. She sat back down, picked up her napkin, smoothed it across her lap, as if dismissing a piece of trash. Across from her, David Kane finally looked up from his phone. 35 years old, tall. Sharp features, dark hair graying at the temples, wearing a Tom Ford suit that cost more than most people's monthly rent. He was the oracle of Silicon Valley, the man who'd built Kane Innovations from a single revolutionary piece of code into a $10 billion empire. His algorithm, Helix AI, could predict diseases years before symptoms appeared. It had saved hundreds of thousands of lives, made him one of the 50 richest people in America. He looked at Victoria, then at the sommelier. His brow furrowed, confused, as if trying to place a face he'd seen in a dream. The restaurant manager, Jean-Pierre Dubois, was already rushing over. 52 years old, French, impeccably dressed, his face pale and slick with sweat. He'd run Constellation for 8 years, 3 Michelin stars, never a scandal, never a problem until now. Miss Ashford Kane, Mr. Kane, he stammered, his accent thicker with panic. 1,000 apologies. This is unacceptable behavior. I will handle this immediately. He turned to Maya, his eyes full of fury, the fury of an employee who was about to cost him his biggest clients. Reyes, you are, he stopped, because Maya had not cried, she had not run. She had slowly, deliberately placed the bottle of Chateau d'Yquem back on the silver wine trolley. Her movements were steady, not a tremor, not a shake. She straightened her back, and then she turned her head to face Victoria Ashford Kane. The red handprint was stark against her pale skin, but her eyes were not the eyes of a sommelier. They were not frightened, they were not cowed, they were not humiliated, they were cold, they were analytical, they were furious. You should not have done that, Maya said. Her voice was not a whisper, it was not a shout, it was clear, low, steady. It carried across the silent room like a blade. Victoria scoffed, a sharp, ugly sound, though a flicker of unease crossed her face. What did you say to me? I said, Maya repeated, taking a half step toward the table. You should not have done that. Get her out of here, Victoria shrieked at Dubois. Now. Miss Reyes, Dubois pleaded, grabbing her arm. You're fired. Leave now. Maya ignored him. She looked past Victoria, past the furious manager, past the 80 frozen witnesses, and she locked eyes with the most powerful man in the room, David Kane. He was staring at her, his phone forgotten in his hand. The initial flicker of confusion on his face had morphed into something else. Disbelief, shock, recognition. His mouth opened, and a single word came out, barely a breath. Maya. It wasn't a question for a sommelier, it was a question for a ghost. Victoria's head whipped around so fast her diamond earrings, another $50,000, swung violently. David, what did you say? Her voice was sharp. Hi, panicked. You know this thing? David didn't answer. He was standing now, slowly, as if moving through water. His eyes never left Maya's face. He was a man who processed petabytes of data in his head for a living, a man who could see patterns in chaos, who could predict market crashes and medical breakthroughs with 98% accuracy. And right now his internal system was crashing. The face, the name, the place, it didn't compute. It can't be, he whispered. The restaurant erupted, not in noise, but in movement, heads turning, phones being pulled from pockets and purses, fingers flying across screens. The tech journalists at table 12 were already typing. The Wall Street investors at table 3 were opening their trading apps. The socialites at table 9 were texting their publicists because they knew that name. Maya Torres, the ghost of Silicon Valley, the woman who'd vanished 4 years ago. The woman David Kane had reportedly spent $100 million trying to find. Victoria stood again, her face white, not with rage this time, with something worse. Fear. David Blackwood Kane, she hissed. What is going on? David finally tore his eyes away from Maya. He looked at Victoria, at the $30 million ring on her finger, at the red silk dress, at the beautiful, calculating face he'd woken up next to for the past 18 months. And he saw nothing, a hollow, gilded shell. You hit her, he said. It wasn't an accusation. It was a statement of fact, spoken with a dawning horror. She deserved it, Victoria cried. She ruined my clutch. She's nobody. She's not nobody, David said. His voice dropped, low, dangerous. He turned back to Maya, addressed the entire room. She is Dr. Maya Torres. The second name hit like a tsunami. There wasn't a person in that room or in the entire tech and finance world who didn't know that name. Dr. Maya Torres, the prodigy, the genius, the co-architect of David Kane's entire empire, the woman who had designed the Helix AI protocol, the revolutionary medical diagnostic algorithm that was the foundation of Kane innovations. The algorithm Forbes magazine had called the single most valuable piece of code in the 21st century. The woman who had vanished without a trace 4 years ago. The woman who was, at this very moment, wearing a burgundy sommelier vest and a name tag that said Maya R. Victoria Ashford Kane hadn't just slapped a sommelier. She had just assaulted the most sought-after missing person in the tech world. Maya removed her sommelier vest, slowly, deliberately. The gesture was precise, controlled. She folded it once, twice, placed it on the wine trolley next to the $12,000 bottle of wine. Underneath, she wore just the white button-down shirt, simple, plain. But the way she stood now, shoulders back, chin up, she looked like she was wearing armor. Not missing David, she said. Her voice was steady, clear, hiding. The room shattered. Whispers exploded like fireworks. Phones were raised. Videos recording. This wasn't just gossip. This was history. This was a scandal that would be on the front page of the Wall Street Journal by morning, on CNN by midnight, trending on every social media platform within the hour. Did he say Maya Tours? The Maya Tours. She's been here the whole time. Oh my God, Ashford Kane just assaulted her. This is insane. Someone call TMZ. Victoria's face cycled through emotions like a slot machine. Shock, confusion, rage, and finally landing on cold, calculating fear, because Victoria knew that name too. She knew exactly who Maya Tours was, and she knew what that meant. To understand what happened next, you have to understand what Maya Tours meant, not just to David Kane, but to the world. 4 years ago, David Kane was just another ambitious tech CEO with a good idea. He'd sold his first startup for $80 million at age 29. Impressive, but not revolutionary. He was working on his second venture, an AI that could predict health outcomes based on genetic data and lifestyle factors. It was promising, but it was limited. It could only predict what had already happened before. It was an echo chamber, not an innovation. Maya Tours was 24 years old, a PhD candidate at MIT. Theoretical mathematics and computer science. She saw patterns in the chaos of the universe that other people couldn't even perceive. She'd published 3 papers that had fundamentally changed how AI models processed uncertainty. She was brilliant, difficult, and utterly uninterested in fame. David had been guest lecturing at MIT, trying to recruit for his fledgling company. After his talk, a young woman with tired eyes and a worn backpack had approached him. She hadn't been impressed. "Your entire premise is flawed, Mr. Kane," she'd said, not rudely, just factually. "You're trying to build a predictive model based on existing data. You'll only ever predict the past. You're not innovating, you're just creating a more efficient echo chamber." David, accustomed to sycophants and investors who hung on his every word, had been floored. "And you, I suppose, have a better idea." "I do," she'd said simply. "I'm not trying to predict the future. I'm trying to teach an AI how to reason. To understand why things happen, not just that they happen. I call it the Helix Protocol. It's based on causal inference modeling and recursive self-correction. Your model looks at data. Mine looks at relationships between data. Your model says this happened, so this will happen. Mine says this happened because of this, so if we change this, we can change the outcome." David had hired her on the spot. He gave her a lab, a team, unlimited resources. For 2 years, they were inseparable. They worked 20-hour days fueled by coffee and a shared obsessive vision. She was the architect. He was the builder. She was the mind. He was the face. She wrote the code. A beautiful, elegant, terrifyingly complex symphony of logic that could model disease progression, predict genetic mutations, and restructure entire healthcare systems. It wasn't just an algorithm. It was a revolution. But Maya had insisted her name be kept off the public-facing documents. "The work matters, David," she'd insisted, "not the credit. Let me be the ghost in the machine. I don't want the attention. I just want to build something that matters." David had agreed, reluctantly, but he'd agreed. Kane Innovations launched. The Helix AI protocol went live. It didn't just succeed. It fundamentally broke and remade the world. Hospitals could predict patient outcomes with 98% accuracy. Insurance companies restructured their entire models. Pharmaceutical companies used it to fast-track drug development. It made David Kane a billionaire 10 times over, and Maya Tours remained a ghost. The tech world knew she existed. Rumors circulated, the mystery co-founder, the hidden genius, but she never gave interviews, never appeared at conferences, never took credit. She was the most valuable, invisible person in the world. And then one Tuesday morning, she was gone. Her apartment was empty. Her hard drives were wiped. Her digital footprint vanished. Her bank accounts closed, her phone disconnected. To the world, she had never existed. The rumor mill went insane. Had she been poached by a rival, by a foreign government? Had she been kidnapped? Had David Kane, as the darkest corners of the internet whispered, erased his partner to keep the profits for himself? David had spent a fortune trying to find her. He'd hired every private investigator and forensic data team on the planet. He'd followed leads to Zurich, Shanghai, Buenos Aires, London, Tokyo. He'd offered a $10 million reward for information. He'd personally reviewed over 50,000 tips. Nothing. He had mourned her, not as a business partner, but as the only mind that had ever truly challenged his own. The only person who'd ever looked at his ideas and said, "That's wrong and here's why," and made him better for it. He'd told the world she'd taken a permanent sabbatical for privacy and mental health. Eventually, the searches slowed. The tips dried up. The world moved on. David had met Victoria Ashford Kane a year later. At a charity gala, she was beautiful, connected. Her family's old money pharmaceutical empire, Ashford Pharma, could stabilize his new money tech empire. The engagement was strategic, a merger, plain and simple. He didn't love her, but he respected the alliance. And now that ghost was standing in front of him, with a red handprint on her face. In a sommelier uniform. 4 years of question, 4 years of guilt, 4 years of searching, all answered in a single moment. "Maya," David said again. His voice was raw, stripped of the CEO polish, just a man confronting the impossible. Why this? Why a sommelier?" The room was silent again, but it was a different kind of silence now, not shock, anticipation. Everyone was leaning forward, phones recording. This was the story, this was the moment. Maya's expression didn't change. Cold. Analytical, but there was something underneath, a flicker of pain, of exhaustion, of 4 years of wait. "I find the work clarifying, David," she said. Her voice was steady, but there was an edge to it, sharp as broken glass. "You meet the most interesting people." Her eyes flickered to Victoria. Victoria's mind was racing, trying to catch up, trying to process. This wasn't just a sommelier. This was Maya Torres, the woman whose disappearance had been the subject of a New York Times podcast, a Netflix documentary, countless conspiracy theories. The woman who was, by all accounts, the co-owner of David's entire fortune. This changed everything. The slap wasn't just assault, it was a catastrophic miscalculation. Victoria stammered. Her voice was an octave too high. Panicked. "I didn't know. How could I know? She's dressed like a servant." "She's dressed," David's voice was arctic, "like the person you were about to have fired for spilling a drop of wine." Jean-Pierre Dubois looked as if he was about to faint. His face was gray. His hands were shaking. He had just tried to fire the most valuable woman in the tech industry. His career was over. Constellation was finished. He began to back away slowly, trying to blend into the wallpaper, but Maya wasn't finished. The shock of her identity was just the first wave. The second was about to hit. She turned to the trembling manager. "Mr. Dubois," she said, her voice ringing with authority. "Please call the police." The room gasped. "What?" Dubois whispered. "The police," Maya repeated. Her voice was calm, clear, unmistakable. "I've been assaulted by a patron. I wish to file a report." And I believe she pointed to the multiple discrete security cameras in the ceiling. "That Constellation has the entire incident on video." Victoria Ashford Kane went white as marble. "You wouldn't dare." "Dare what?" Maya asked. She rubbed her stinging cheek. The red handprint was darkening to purple. "Dare to report a crime, or dare to be a person who doesn't let you hit them. This is ridiculous," Victoria spat. She was grasping for control, for the upper hand, for anything. "David, stop this. Give her money. Give her whatever she wants. Pay for her, I don't know, her apartment. Just make this go away." David looked at Victoria, and for the first time he seemed to be really seeing her. The beautiful, calculating woman he was about to marry. The woman who'd shared his bed for 18 months. The woman who wore his $30 million ring, and he saw nothing. A stranger. He turned back to Maya. His voice was heavy with 4 years of questions. "Maya, what do you want?" Maya held his gaze. Her eyes were clear, unwavering. "I want justice, David." She paused, and her eyes flickered with a new, dangerous light. "But more than that, I want you to ask your fiancé who Richard Ashford is." If the name Maya Tours had been a tsunami, the name Richard Ashford was a targeted missile. David's face, which had been a mask of confusion and shock, instantly hardened into a sheet of ice. The muscles in his jaw locked, his hands clenched into fists. Richard Ashford. The room didn't understand. Not yet, but David did. Richard Ashford was not a public name. He was not on any Forbes list. He was not a celebrity CEO. He was the dark matter of David's world. The invisible force that had shaped everything. Richard Ashford was the founder and CEO of Ashford Pharma, a pharmaceutical company that had been a giant in the 1980s and 90s, developed 3 blockbuster drugs, made billions, but in the last decade it had been dying, slowly, painfully, crushed by generic competition and failed drug trials. And Richard Ashford was Victoria's father, but more than that. Richard Ashford had been David's first investor 7 years ago. When David was nobody, when Kane Innovations was just an idea and a PowerPoint deck, Richard Ashford had given him his seed money, $5 million, in exchange for 20% of the company. And 2 years later, David had discovered that Richard Ashford had been embezzling, stealing proprietary data, trying to sell Kane Innovations research to competitors. David had crushed him, bought him out in a hostile takeover that was still the stuff of Silicon Valley legend, paid him $50 million and excised him from the company and his life. Or so he thought. What do you know about Richard Ashford? David's voice was no longer that of a confused man. It was the CEO of Kane Innovations, interrogating a hostile witness. David, don't be absurd, Victoria snapped, though her voice was shaking. What does that man have to do with anything? This girl is just trying to distract you. She's clearly obsessed with you. She's been stalking you for 4 years. She's not distracting me, David said, his eyes still locked on Maya. She's answering my question. This was the moment, the pivot. The entire 4-year-long charade had led to this. Maya finally dropped the neutral mask of the sommelier. The full force of her intellect, her anger, and her pain flooded her features. Why am I here, David? She began. Her voice was gaining strength, gaining power. Why am I Maya Reyes, the sommelier? Is that what you want to know? The restaurant was her stage now. No one was eating. No one was breathing. The waiters stood frozen against the walls. The kitchen staff had emerged from the back, watching through the service windows. I didn't just leave 4 years ago, Maya continued. I didn't take a sabbatical. I didn't have a breakdown. I didn't get poached. I ran. I ran, Maya repeated, because I found something. Her voice was steady now, strong. This was her moment. 4 years of hiding, 4 years of waiting, 4 years of planning, all for this. Buried deep in the Helix AI protocol, she continued, a back door. Not one I had built, it was parasitic code, siphoning data, not just any data, your data, David. The company's future projections, our research and development, our financial vulnerabilities, patient data, everything. David's face was white. That's impossible, he said, but his voice was weak. Because he knew Maya. He knew she didn't make mistakes. I personally oversaw the security audit after Ashford was pushed out. And you're brilliant, David, Maya said, a flash of her old arrogance surfacing. But you're not a coder, not like me. You looked for a sledgehammer. This was a scalpel. It was hidden in the original seed funding code. The code Richard Ashford provided 7 years ago. Before you even knew what Helix AI would become, he planted it then. And he's been watching ever since. The room erupted in whispers. Oh my God. He's been spying on Kane Innovations for 7 years. This is the biggest corporate espionage case in history. Someone call the SEC. David's world was tilting. The floor beneath him was crumbling. He's been spying on me for 7 years, spying. Maya said with a bitter laugh. No, David, that's what you do to a competitor. He was gutting you. He was playing the long game. He's been shorting your stock on inside information for years. He's been feeding your innovations to your rivals before they even hit your own drawing board. He wasn't just embezzling. He was planning a takeover. He was waiting for the perfect moment to bleed Kane Innovations dry and buy the corpse for pennies on the dollar. A diner in the corner, a known Wall Street investor, quietly picked up his phone and began typing, furiously. I found it, Maya said. Her voice dropped, became quieter, more personal. I found the back door, and I confronted him. Or rather, I confronted the digital ghost I thought was him. I sent an encrypted message through the code itself. Told him I knew, told him I was going to expose him. What did he do? David whispered. He responded. Maya's eyes were distant now, remembering he wasn't just a ghost in the machine. He was in the machine. He locked me out of my own system, changed all my passwords, revoked my access. And then he sent me a message, not an email, not a text. He activated the smart camera on my laptop, showed me a live feed of what? Of my younger sister. The room went silent again. Emma, Maya said. Her voice cracked for the first time. She was 16, at boarding school in Connecticut. He showed me a live feed of her in her dorm room, studying, headphones on, completely unaware, and then the camera zoomed in on her face, and a message appeared on my screen. Maya's hands were shaking now, the only sign of emotion. It said, ghosts can't testify, but sisters can disappear. The raw pain in her voice was devastating. Absolute. This wasn't a corporate story anymore. This was personal, this was family. He knew my one vulnerability, Maya continued, my family, my sister. She was all I had. Our parents died when I was 19. I raised her, paid for her school. She was going to be a doctor. She was brilliant, kind, everything good in the world, and he threatened to kill her, so I vanished. The room was silent, 80 people, 80 of the most powerful, most cynical people in New York, and they were all silent, listening, captivated. I wiped my digital footprint, Maya said, liquidated what I had. $2.3 million in savings and stock options. Created a new identity. Maya Reyes. Moved Emma to witness protection. FBI contact I'd worked with on a cybersecurity project. She's been in a safe house for 4 years. She thinks I'm on a permanent research sabbatical in Europe. She thinks I'm working on classified government projects. She doesn't know the truth. And you? David asked. His voice was hoarse. I disappeared into the one place a person with my skills would never be looked for, Maya said. The service industry. I've been a barista at a Starbucks in Brooklyn, a hotel maid at the Waldorf Astoria, a bartender at a dive bar in Queens, and for the last 8 months a sommelier at Constellation. Why here? David asked. Because, Maya said, turning to look directly at Victoria, because this is your special occasion spot, David. You've brought Victoria here once a month since you started dating. And because the Vanderbilt family, Victoria's mother's side, owns the holding company that owns this building. It's one of the few places Victoria feels safe enough to be indiscreet. Victoria's breath hitched. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't you? Maya said. Her voice was sharp now, predatory. Let's talk about your father, Baron Richard Ashford. A man whose pharmaceutical empire has been crumbling for a decade, leveraged to the hilt, desperate enough to make a deal with the devil, desperate enough to use his own daughter as bait. Lies, Victoria shrieked. My father doesn't. He wouldn't. Then explain this, Maya said. She reached into her pocket, pulled out her phone, not a smartphone, an old flip phone, untraceable. She opened it, pressed a button, and a voice filled the restaurant, Victoria's voice. But Daddy, the merger is the deal. Once I'm married, we get the access, full access, his passwords, his private servers, everything. The recording continued. A man's voice, older, refined. British accent. Patience, darling. Mr. Kane trusts you. After the wedding, you'll have everything we need. And then we'll finally have what's rightfully ours. The Helix AI protocol, the patient database. Everything that fool built on our investment. Victoria's voice again. And Maya Torres, what if she comes back? She won't, the man's voice said. She's too afraid. And if she does, well, we still have leverage. Her sister is very easy to find. The recording ended. The silence was absolute. David turned to Victoria, slowly. The temperature of the room, which was already cold, plummeted into an abyss. Victoria, he said. His voice was perfectly level, perfectly calm. It was the voice he used just before he fired a board member, just before he destroyed a competitor. Is what she's saying true? Victoria's face cycled through emotions. Denial, rage, fear, desperation. "David, my love, my darling," she grabbed his arm. Her polished nails, manicured to perfection, dug into his Tom Ford suit. "It's a misunderstanding. Father, he's in business with many people. I don't know all of them. This waitress is twisting my words. She's jealous. She's in love with you, can't you see? It was a desperate, pathetic gamble, and it failed. She's not in love with me," David said. His voice was flat, dead. He pulled his arm from her grasp. "She's trying to save my company. And you? What were you doing?" The puzzle pieces were clicking into place with sickening speed. The engagement, the merger, it wasn't about love. It wasn't even about money. It was about access. "The engagement," David whispered. His face was a mask of dawning realization. "The merger, it wasn't about our families. It was about access." "David, no, the wedding," he continued. His voice was gaining strength, gaining fury. It wasn't a celebration. It was a deadline. The deadline for Richard Ashford to finally get his hands on the one thing I never gave him. The keys to the Helix AI protocol, the patient database, the research, everything. Victoria's mask finally crumbled, the aristocratic poise, the haughty superiority, it all shattered, revealing the terrified, grasping fraud beneath. He promised," she sobbed. She collapsed into her chair, her face in her hands. "He promised no one would get hurt. He said it was just a transfer, a rebalancing. My father's company, it was going under. We were going to lose everything. The houses, the reputation, everything." She looked up, tears streaming down her face, mascara running. "Ashford said," she continued, "you owed him. He said it was his company, not yours. He said you stole it. He said the Helix AI was built on his investment, that you cheated him out of billions. He said we were just taking back what was ours." It was a full confession, delivered in a 3-Michelin-star restaurant, in front of 80 of the most influential people in New York City, in front of cameras, in front of the world. David looked at the woman he was supposed to marry, the woman who had conspired to destroy him, to steal his life's work, to betray him in the most fundamental way possible, and he felt nothing, just a cold, empty void. He looked at Maya, at the woman who had given up her life, her name, her safety, her sister for 4 years, to protect their work, to protect him. The contrast was absolute. "Mr. Dubois," David said. His voice was now the unmistakable boom of command. The manager, who had been trying to blend into the wallpaper, snapped to attention. "Yes, Mr. Kane. You called the police, correct?" Yes, sir. For Miss Torres." "Good," David said. He pulled out his own phone. "I'll need you to call them again. Tell them to send a second car." He looked down at his sobbing, broken fiancée. "This one," he said, his voice utterly devoid of emotion, "is for fraud. The arrival of the police at Constellation was not the sirens blaring spectacle one might expect. This was a different kind of law enforcement, the kind that serves the 0.01%. Two quiet, grim-faced detectives in expensive, understated suits came in through the service elevator, led by Jean-Pierre Dubois. The restaurant was in a state of suspended animation. Patrons were no longer pretending to eat. They were watching, phones discreetly recording. This was the biggest society scandal of the decade unfolding in real time. The first detective, a woman named Sarah Harding, approached table 7, 45 years old, sharp eyes. She'd seen everything in her 20 years with the NYPD, but this was new. "We received a call about an assault," she said. Her voice was professional, neutral. Maya, who had been standing silently, finally rubbed her cheek. The sting had faded, replaced by a deep, throbbing ache. "I'm the one who called," she said. "That woman," she pointed at Victoria, "slapped me." Victoria, who was now being flanked by restaurant security, looked up, her face a mess of tears and mascara. "It was a mistake," she said. Her voice was small, broken. I was upset. I'll pay whatever she wants." "It'll be on the report, ma'am," Detective Harding said, unimpressed. She'd seen it all before. Wealthy people thinking money could erase crimes. "I'll need your statement, Miss Torres," Maya said. "Dr. Maya Torres." Harding's pen froze midair. She glanced at her partner, Detective Marcus Chen, 50 years old, 25 years on the force. Even they knew the name. This was no longer a simple assault. and David stepped forward. "I am the one who called for the second car," he said. "Detective, I'd like to report a multi-billion-dollar conspiracy to commit corporate fraud." Harding's partner's eyes went wide. "Sir, this woman," David pointed at Victoria, "has just confessed. She, her father, Richard Ashford, and potentially others have been systematically defrauding my company, Kane Innovations, for years. Her impending marriage to me was the final step in a hostile, illegal takeover." "David, you can't," Victoria wailed. "You'll ruin me. You'll ruin my family. You," David said, his voice so cold it burned, "were going to ruin me. You were going to let a criminal gut the life's work of thousands of people. You were going to help him steal the work of the woman you hit. Ruin is a mild word for what you deserve." He turned to the detectives. "You'll find all the preliminary evidence you need on my fiancée's phone. I'm sure she'll hand it over willingly." "Won't you, Victoria?" Victoria stared at him, her face a mask of horror. She knew, as he did, that her phone contained everything. The texts with her father, the encrypted messages, the merger plans, the access codes she'd been collecting. David's own private security team, men who were ex-Delta Force and ex-Mossad, had materialized by the elevators. They were not there for Victoria. They were there for Maya. They flanked her instantly, forming a protective human wall, a ghost no longer. She was now their most valuable asset. This is, Victoria was hyperventilating. She looked around the room, at all the faces, all the phones. She was not just being arrested, she was being seen. Her entire social world, the galas, the charity boards, the magazine covers, was evaporating. As Detective Harding began to read Victoria her rights, a new, sharp voice cut through the room. "This is a private property matter, officers." A small, ferret-like man in a Brioni suit was pushing his way through. This was Mr. Harrison, David's personal lawyer, the fixer. David had apparently called him before the police. "My client, Mr. Kane, has been the victim of a terrible deception," Harrison announced to the room, "as has his former fiancée, Miss Ashford Kane, who was clearly coerced and manipulated by her father and others." Maya and David both looked at him. Stunned, Victoria's sobbing stopped. A tiny, desperate spark of hope lit in her eyes. "What?" David hissed, pulling his lawyer aside. "She just confessed." "To what?" Harrison hissed back. "To being a bad fiancé, to having a criminal father. It's hearsay, David." "What's not hearsay is an assault charge. And you want that to go away, you need this to be clean." "I don't listen to me," Harrison said. His voice was firm. This was why David paid him $2 million a year. "You are about to go to war with Richard Ashford. You cannot do that while you are also the man who had his fiancée arrested at Constellation. The press will crucify you. They'll say you did it to protect your assets from the divorce." She becomes the victim. Ashford walks. David's face was a thundercloud. He hated it. He hated the optics. But Harrison was right. The lawyer turned to the detectives. "This was a violent, emotional misunderstanding," he said smoothly. "Miss Torres," he turned to Maya with a brilliant, reptilian smile, "does not wish to press charges for the slap. It was the act of a distraught, manipulated woman. And Miss Torres, as the true partner of Kane Innovations, is forgiving." Maya stared at him. She had spent 4 years in hiding. 4 years of planning. And this man was about to erase her justice for a clean narrative. "I'm not," she began. "You are," Harrison said, his eyes boring into hers, conveying a silent message. "Do you want Ashford, or do you want this one small victory?" Maya understood. This was the long game. The slap was nothing. Richard Ashford was everything. She took a deep breath. "He's right," she said. Her voice was hollow. "It was a misunderstanding. I was clumsy. Miss Ashford Kane was overwrought. I won't be pressing charges." Detective Harding looked at Maya, at the red mark on her face, at the billionaire and his fixer, and she sighed. She knew exactly what was happening. "Right," she said. "A misunderstanding. Ma'am, are you sure?" "I'm sure," Maya said. Her voice was hard as steel. Victoria's relief was so total she almost collapsed. "But the fraud," David said, "is not a matter for the NYPD," Harrison said smoothly. "It's a matter for the SEC, the FBI, and the Southern District of New York. all of whom will be receiving a very detailed package from my office by sunrise. We don't arrest her, we contain her. We let her father think she's still his inside woman, and we use her to feed them exactly what we want them to hear." Victoria's face, which had been flooded with relief, now filled with a new, more profound terror. She wasn't going to jail, she was going to be bait. The detectives left. Victoria was escorted out by David's security team, not to jail, to a private location. A debriefing room, where she would spend the next 72 hours telling Harrison and the FBI everything she knew. The patrons of Constellation began to file out. The spell was broken. A tidal wave of whispers, the click of smartphone cameras, the rustle of expensive fabric. "My God, it is Maya Torres." She slapped her right in the face. "The Ashford-Kane merger is dead. Short Kane Innovations by morning. Call my broker. Sell Ashford Pharma. Sell all of it." The news was already hitting the financial world before Victoria had even reached the elevator. The vultures were circling. Ashford Pharma's stock would be worthless by morning. The Ashford family name would be destroyed by noon. Jean-Pierre Dubois, his face the color of old parchment, rushed to David's side. "Mr. Kane, sir, Miss Torres, I am. Words cannot express my profound apology. For my restaurant, for this." It's all right, Jean-Pierre," Maya said, using his first name. The shift in power was absolute and total. "You were doing your job. Your staff was impeccable. But you, Miss Torres," he stammered, looking at her discarded vest. I tried to fire you, and Maya said, was a very distracting employee. Please just take care of your staff. This wasn't their fault." "Everything," Dubois said, wringing his hands. "Everything is comped. No one will pay for anything tonight. Please, this must not ruin us." "You will be fine, Jean-Pierre," David said, his voice a low command. "You will, in fact, be the most famous restaurant in the world by sunrise. Send me a bill for the damages and an NDA for your staff. A very, very generous one." "Yes, sir. Thank you, sir," Dubois bowed, a man given a last-second reprieve from the gallows, and fled to manage the exodus. Harrison, the fixer, snapped his briefcase shut. "David, Maya, I'm taking our new guest to the debriefing location. You'll have my preliminary report in 3 hours. You're going to bleed them dry. We'll have Richard Ashford's entire estate by Wednesday." "Good," David said. "Go." Harrison nodded and left, and then silence. It was a profound, echoing quiet, broken only by the distant wail of a siren in the city far below, and the quiet, respectful sound of a busboy standing 20 yards away, nervously starting to clear a distant table. David and Maya were alone. They stood at the vast floor-to-ceiling window, two silhouettes against a galaxy of city lights. For a full minute, neither spoke. The chasm of 4 years of fear, of searching, of loneliness, of hiding, yawned between them. David spoke first, his voice rough. "I looked for you. You know that, right? I spent $100 million on private investigators. I tore apart 3 continents. I thought you were dead, Maya. I mourned you." Maya didn't turn. She was looking out at the city, at the lights, at the world she'd been hiding from for 4 years. "I know," she said quietly. "I watched you from a distance." "You what?" He turned to face her, his face a mask of disbelief and slowly dawning pain. "You watched me all this time. Why didn't you come to me? Why in God's name this?" He gestured around the opulent, empty room at her discarded vest. Maya finally turned. The mask of the Avenger was gone. All that was left was a woman who was tired, down to her bones. "Because you wouldn't have believed me, David," she said, her voice heavy with the weight of her sacrifice. "Not then. 4 years ago, you were invincible. You had just beaten Ashford. You'd kicked him out of your company. You were the king. If I had come to you and said, 'He's still here, he's a ghost in our code,' you would have said I was paranoid. You would have said I was stressed. You would have launched a polite internal investigation. And Ashford would have seen it. He would have known I'd found him." She took a ragged breath. "And he would have killed my sister." David's anger dissolved, replaced by a wave of cold, agonizing shame. He knew deep in his gut that she was right. He had been arrogant. He would have dismissed her. "He sent me a video," Julian, Maya continued. "A live feed of Emma in her dorm room, studying. That's all it took. One video, I couldn't protect her and fight Ashford, not from inside the castle, so I left. I became a ghost. I put Emma in a safe house so deep she'd never be found, and I waited. Her voice was gaining strength now. I've been a barista, a hotel cleaner, a short order cook. I've been invisible, waiting for Ashford to get arrogant. Waiting for him to make a move so big, so stupid. She looked at the empty table where Victoria had sat, that you'd finally have to believe me. David's shame was complete, absolute. I'm don't, she cut him off, her voice hardening again. Don't say you're sorry. We don't have time. The apology won't save us. He nodded, accepting the truth. He looked at the wreckage of table 7, the spilled wine, the shattered glass, the half-eaten duck. And glinting in the center of the white tablecloth, the abandoned $30 million diamond ring, a monument to his failure, a testament to his blindness. Maya followed his gaze. She walked to the table. She was still wearing the white button-down shirt, the black slacks. It felt absurd now. A costume from a life that had exploded an hour ago. She looked at the ring. This obscene symbol of a love that was a lie. Then she reached behind her back and picked up the folded sommelier vest. The gesture was slow, deliberate. It was a shedding of a skin, a resurrection. She placed the folded burgundy vest directly on the table, covering the diamond ring, the symbol of her 4-year penance eclipsing the symbol of his 4-year mistake. I'm done being invisible, David, she said, her voice quiet but ringing with a finality that shook him. What happens now? He asked. His voice was not that of a CEO. It was a man asking for directions. Maya's eyes became sharp, her mind already moving at the speed of her own protocol. Now she said, the war actually begins. Harrison has Victoria. That's a temporary advantage. He thinks he's playing chess. He's not. Ashford is a spider and we just tore his web. He'll cut the Ashfords loose. He'll sever all ties, assume they're compromised. He's not going to run, David. He's going to bite. What's his play? Scorched earth, Maya said, her voice dropping to a deadly serious low. He can't steal the Helix AI protocol anymore. Not with me back. I'm the only one who can see his code, the only one who can lock him out for good. So he'll do the next best thing. He'll weaponize it. David went pale. He'll expose the core data. Worse, Maya countered, he'll release it. He'll open source the keys to the kingdom. He'll sell the most dangerous predictive models, the Pandora subsets we built, to the highest bidder, rogue states, terrorist cells, corporate rivals. He'll unleash our life's work as a global weapon. Just to watch the world and our company burn to the ground. The air left David's lungs, the Pandora subsets, the algorithms they had designed to model infrastructure collapse, global pandemics, bioterrorism, chemical warfare. The code they had mutually agreed was too dangerous to ever connect to a live network. He'll do it, David whispered, just for revenge. He's been trying to access that data vault for years, Maya said. He thought Victoria would be his key. Now that she's gone, he won't use a key. He'll use a bomb. He's probably already started. We don't have days, we have hours. The paralysis broke. The CEO snapped back into place. David ripped his phone from his pocket. Get the helicopter on the roof. Now he barked at his head of security. I want Kane Tower on full lockdown. Code Helix Prime. Nobody in, nobody out. Not even the board. I want our entire cyber forensics division in the war room in 10 minutes. And get me a direct, secure line to the director of national intelligence. He hung up, his mind already racing. My team, he said to Maya, they're the best, but they won't know where to look. This back door, it's woven into the foundation. They're your team, Maya said. They're not our team. They're looking for a burglar. We're hunting a ghost. A ghost, I know. A ghost I built the cage for. She started walking. Not towards the main doors, but towards the service exit, the exit she had used 1,000 times. It was the fastest way to the roof. Maya, wait, David called out. She paused at the door, her hand on the metal bar. Your sister, he said, the question freighted with 4 years of guilt. Emma, is she safe, truly? Her expression softened, just for a fraction of a second. The first genuine, vulnerable crack in her armor. Yes, she said. She's been in a private safe house in New Zealand for 4 years, with a team of ex-Mossad agents. The only thing I spent my old money on. He thinks I'm on a permanent research sabbatical. He's safe. Good, David breathed. The last personal thread was tied. Now, she said, pushing the door open. The alarm started to sound, a sharp, piercing wail. Before David silenced it with a code on his phone, she stood in the doorway, the wind from the service corridor whipping her hair. The ghost was gone. Maya Torres was back. David, she said, a grim, tired smile touching her lips. We're going to need coffee, a lot of coffee, and a whiteboard. A very, very big whiteboard. He fell into step beside her. They didn't look back. They walked out of the opulent, silent restaurant, leaving the folded vest and the $30 million ring behind, in the ruins. They were not a billionaire and a sommelier. They were not a CEO and his employee. They were partners, and they had a world to save. Epilogue, 6 months later, word count, tilde 600 words 6 months later. Constellation Restaurant, private event. The entire restaurant had been rented out. Not for a wedding, not for a gala, but for a celebration. Maya Torres stood at table 7. The same table, the same corner booth, but everything was different now. She was wearing a tailored navy suit, Tom Ford, custom made. Her hair was down, loose waves. She looked like herself. Finally, beside her stood Emma, 20 years old now, studying pre-med at Columbia, safe, healthy, smiling. David Kane stood at the head of the table, addressing a room full of journalists, investors, and the same 80 people who had witnessed the slap 6 months ago. Today, he announced, Kane Innovations is proud to unveil Helix AI 2.0, a redesigned, fully transparent, open-source medical diagnostic protocol, free for all nonprofit hospitals worldwide. The room erupted in applause. We are also announcing, David continued, the appointment of Dr. Maya Torres as Chief Technology Officer and co-CEO of Kane Innovations, with retroactive equity dating back to the company's founding. More applause. Maya stepped forward. And we are announcing, she said, her voice clear and strong, the establishment of the Torres Foundation, a $500 million endowment to protect whistleblowers and victims of corporate retaliation. The applause was deafening. After the speeches, after the toasts, after the photographs, Maya sat down at table 7, Emma beside her, David across from them. A waiter approached, young, nervous, new. Miss Torres, he said, your table is ready. What can I get you? Maya smiled. I'll take the Chateau d'Yquem, she said, 1947, and don't worry, I won't spill it. The waiter laughed, nervously, not sure if it was a joke. David raised his glass. To ghosts, he said, to partners, Maya countered. They drank. In the background, on the television above the bar, a news anchor was speaking. And in other news, the trial of Richard Ashford and Victoria Ashford Kane continues. The prosecution alleges the largest corporate espionage case in U.S. history. If convicted, both face up to 30 years in federal prison. Maya didn't look at the screen. She looked out the window, at the city, at the lights, at the world she'd saved, and she smiled. Federal Correctional Institution, Danbury, Connecticut, visiting room. Victoria Ashford Kane sat at a metal table, orange jumpsuit, no makeup, hair pulled back. She looked 10 years older. Across from her sat her lawyer. Expensive suit, tired eyes. Your father is cooperating with prosecutors, he said. His voice flat. He's blaming everything on you. Says you manipulated him, says you were the mastermind. Victoria's face didn't change. She'd expected this. Tell them, she said, her voice cold and clear, that I have recordings too, of everyone, every investor, every board member, every politician who took Ashford money. The lawyer's eyes widened. Victoria, if I'm going down, she said, leaning forward, I'm taking half of Wall Street with me. She smiled, a small, cruel smile. The same smile she'd worn 6 months ago, right before she slapped a sommelier. Tell them, she repeated, that the trial hasn't even started yet. The lawyer stood, gathering his briefcase. You're going to destroy yourself. Victoria leaned back, crossed her arms. I'm already destroyed, she said. Might as well take them with me. The lawyer left. Victoria sat alone in the visiting room, staring at the wall, still smiling. And that everyone is the story of the slap that saved an empire. It's a crazy, winding tale, but it shows that you never know the true story of the person standing right in front of you. That sommelier, that barista, that person you dismiss. They might just be a ghost, biding their time. What did you think of this story? What would you have done if you were Maya? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you love stories with wild twists, insane drama, and righteous justice, then you are in the right place. Hit that like button, share this video, and most importantly, subscribe and turn on that notification bell so you never miss another story. Thanks for listening. See you in the next one.